You need to add a column. On your laptop, that is 10 seconds and one line. In production, it has to happen while every customer you have is using the product, with no maintenance window, because your customers are in different time zones, and there is no hour where nobody is working. And here is the part people underestimate. For a while, the old code and the new schema exist at the same time because a deploy is not instant. So the real question is, never can I run this migration. It is what is true during the 4 minutes while it is running. And what does the code that has not been deployed yet believe about this table? There is one shape that works, and it is worth learning as a shape rather than a trick. Expand. Add the new thing, nullable, with no default that rewrites the table, so old code carries on and does not even notice. Migrate. Backfill the data in batches and deploy code that writes to both the old and the new place while reading from the old one. Then switch reads to the new place once you have verified the backfill is actually complete, and only then contract, dropping the old column, in a later deploy when nothing has referenced it for a while. 4 steps and at least 3 deploys to add a column. That is not bureaucracy. Every one of those steps is a moment where old and new code are both running, and each step is safe from both sides. The backfill is where people take the outage. One update statement across the whole table takes a lock and holds it for as long as it takes, which on a big table means every other query on it waits, and that is episode 5's outage arriving through a different door. So batch it. Take a few thousand rows, commit, sleep for a moment, repeat, and let ordinary traffic through the gaps. It runs for hours instead of minutes, and that is the point. The boring version finishes at 2 in the afternoon with nobody noticing, and the clever version finishes in 4 minutes with an incident channel. And know your database's specific traps because they are version specific and they bite. Adding a column with a volatile default may rewrite the whole table, and adding a constraint may take a lock strong enough to block writes unless you add it, not valid first and validate afterwards. Now multiply that by your tenancy model, because this is where the choice from episode 2 sends you the bill. In a pool, it is one table, so it is one migration. And that is the good news. The bad news is that if it goes wrong for everyone simultaneously. In bridge or silo, it is a schema or a database each. So a migration is not a statement anymore. It is a job that runs thousands of times. And everything that is rare becomes certain. One tenant will have a lock you did not expect. One will have data that violates the constraint you are adding. One will be mid-restore, so it has to be resumable, meaning it tracks which tenants are done and can be rerun safely after failing on tenant 147. And your platform now lives in a state you never get to skip. Some tenants migrated, some not, both being served by the same code. One last thing, and it is the one that turns a clean plan into a 3 a.m. rollback. Between deploying code and finishing a migration, both versions are live. So every migration has to be safe for the code that came before it, and every deploy has to be safe against the schema that has not changed yet. That is why you never rename a column, you add a new one and dual write, because a rename is instant destruction for whatever is still running. It is why you never drop anything in the same release that stops using it. And it is why the rollback plan is not rerunning the migration backwards. It is designing every step so that stopping halfway leaves the system correct. If you cannot describe what happens when the deploy succeeds and the migration fails, you do not have a migration plan, you have a hope. So we can change the platform without taking it down. Now the product team arrives with a request that sounds harmless. They want to show each customer how they compare to everyone else. benchmarks, across all tenants, which is one join away from everything we spent 6 episodes preventing. Next episode, cross-tenant analytics without leaking. See you there.